welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and his name is Len May, and he's a life coach, but in not a life coach way that you might expect. So, Len May actually deals with something called epigenetics and genomics. Is that correct?
Good enough.
Good enough. How are you doing today, and what all is your business about?
I'm doing great. My business is about precision health and wellness. So One of the beliefs that I've had is that the way that we're treated as patients or as just people, it's sort of cookie cutter approach. You go to a doctor, they look at you, they give you a protocol, and they say, take 2 of these and call me in the morning. Well, I always wonder, why not 3? Why not 1? You know? So I look at genetics as sort of your blueprint of your life. That is your life's GPS unit. So when you look at your genetics, it tells you where your possible potholes are in your own road, so you know how to avoid stepping into them. And then you can make lifestyle choices that are specific to you to mitigate the expression of epigenetic markers that you are turning on where you may not be aware, and focus on turning on the things that you're supposed to turn on based on lifestyle choices. And that has to do with physical health. That has to do with mental health. And has to do with overall health and wellness for the individual.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. And that sounds like a lot of stuff that is something straight from sci-fi, right?
Genetics have been around. We've been looking at genetics since the 50s. I mean, there's genes for like BRCA1, BRCA2, breast cancer genes. They're very well studied. But I think it's a notion of understanding genetics first. And then we started, when I did when I launched the company, we originally looked at the endocannabinoid system. That was because I started seeing people will consume phytocannabinoids and have completely different experiences. And I was like, well, why is that happening? You know, even if it's the same chemical variety, people connect with it differently. So I started looking at that, and that's where we did our first genetic test on the endocannabinoid system and how different things affect different people. And then we expanded from that to personalized health and wellness across the board. And I think genetics is it's not very well studied in medical school. Doctors don't really talk about it. But if you really think about it in the simplest form, you know, you get your DNA when you're born 50% from your mother, 50% from your father. But the thing that people I think don't understand, your genetic encoding is not something that is specific to you in terms of you have no control over it. When you're born, think of it this way.
Okay.
So you have markers that are turned on at birth. So you have like your hair color, your eye color, your skin color. A lot of the other things, maybe about 20% of those markers are in the on position. Gotcha. The rest, your lifestyle choices govern what you're going to turn on or what you're going to turn off. So it creates those proteins, and it creates, as you mentioned earlier, epigenetic expression. So epigenetic is the turning on of the genetic predispositions. So if you can think about it as a circuit breaker, envision a big circuit breaker with a bunch of on-off switches. So your lifestyle choices get to turn those things on. So how? Well, nutrition. What food we put into our bodies can determine how you're going to turn things on or off. Exposure to heavy metals, pesticides, all these different things, they can also turn things on or off. Also, our own brain chemistry, our own neurochemicals. So if we're prone to a lot of stress, for instance, it can turn on those epigenetic markers that make us prone to stress or PTSD, etc. And it starts looping that over and over and over. So if you understand this about yourself, you can make smart lifestyle choices by the food that you consume, the exposure that you have, your mental state. And the other thing is quality of sleep is really important, because during sleep, it depends. Length of sleep is one thing, but it's quality of sleep, because it resets those receptors and creates the expression of different hormones. You're building testosterone as a male during sleep. So there's different things that you do. So if you're able to reset yourself properly, get a good quality sleep, then you're able to get your body back in homeostasis, which is balance. So that's really important.
Wow, that's some really interesting stuff. And how exactly did you get the idea to do this? Besides just, was it something that just like popped in your head one day, or was it something that was like you thought about it and twisted it a little bit and thought about it some more, or what was it?
I think it's my life's journey. So when I was a kid, there's a couple of moments in life. When I was a kid, my grandfather had a stroke, and he proceeded to have multiple strokes. And he was a very large man, like tall and big, and my grandmother was really small, and I could see she had to like drag him around. And my mom, my grandmother would sit at the table, and they had bags of pills. And he would keep getting these adverse effects, and they would say, all right, we dialed it in, and the interaction between the drugs that would create these adverse effects for him. So I always thought, man, I'm kind of scared of prescription medication because I saw this firsthand. And then the other thing that was happening to me is when I would sit in class, the teacher would call on me, but my mind was elsewhere. Like I wasn't really focusing in class, and because I wasn't really stimulated. And what was happening was when I wasn't focusing in class and teachers would call on me, I started being disruptive just because it was entertaining. I would talk and all this other stuff. I started getting in trouble, and this pattern started revolving. So my parents took me to a doctor, and I was diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder, without the hyperactive part at that time. And when you're labeled with a disorder, like there's something wrong with you, you start, subscribing to the fact that there's got to be something wrong with me. And I never thought about it as my superpower. So when I was hanging out with some older kids one day, like around 9th grade or so, and they asked me if I want to smoke a cigarette. And I was like, cool, I'm going to smoke a cigarette with the older kids. I'll be one of the cool guys. I never questioned why they only had one cigarette, but they had a cigarette, and they passed it around, and it got to me, and I took a drag, and it didn't taste like a cigarette that I tasted before, and they were laughing at me, but they filled it with cannabis. And when I went back to class, the windows that were open in my head, because it's hard to pay attention, they sort of narrowed in, and I could focus. So I'm like, all right, cannabis became sort of my go-to. I got rid of all the prescription medication at that time. By the way, I'm not advocating this for anyone. I'm just saying this is my own journey, and I would urge people to look at their own specific journey on plant medicine or psychedelics and whatever it is, but explore. Don't just look at there's not more than one way to address different things. So my parents ended up catching me a bunch of times, and at one point they ended up kicking me out. Actually, they called the cops to have me arrested. Ooh. So they called the cops, tried to have me arrested, and kicked me out. And I didn't get arrested because the cops were like, it's not enough here to just personal use. So, it was my medicine. And I went into corporate, and I did all that stuff. And I'm from Philadelphia, but I moved to L.A. About 16 years ago. And at that time, I was a commercial real estate broker. And I was sitting in an office trying to figure out what I want to do because that wasn't it. And these guys came in and asked me if I wanted to, if I could help them get an alternative pharmacy, they were saying. I'm like, well, what's an alternative pharmacy? I don't understand. So anyway, and then I ended up being a dispensary. So where's your paperwork and all that stuff? They didn't have anything. So I helped them, and they offered me a partnership. So I ended up opening 5 dispensaries under the same brand. And that's sort of the notion of people are consuming the same exact varietal, having a different effect that sort of kicked in my ADD, hyper-focus mode. And I'm like, there's got to be a solution for this. So I'm searching. I found a video by this guy named Kevin McKernan, who claimed to be the first person, or one of the first people, to genetically sequence a plant. So plant genomics. So I connected with him. Long story, a little bit longer. he asked me to come on board. So my job, what I did was I traveled the U.S. and a little bit of Canada, met some of the top cultivators, grabbed samples of whatever their crop, sequenced it and stripped out whatever the ingredients are, sequenced the plant, and we started building the first genetic library of chemical varieties of cannabis called Cannapedia with a K, and we put that on the blockchain. So everybody has chain of custody if they're growing something unique. And the parent company of this was called Cortigen Life Sciences. So they did what's called pharmacogenomics testing. The name of the company doesn't matter, but pharmacogenomics is a study of how your body interacts with different drugs that you put in, and also drug interaction. So if contraindications, if you're taking one with the other. So my light bulb moment was like, we got plant genetics here, we have human genetics here. Let's bring those two together and guide people to a personalized experience. They weren't interested in it, so that what got me in the space. I said, you know what? I'm going to grab some really smart people, smarter than me, and launched a company. And we did that in December of 2017.
Oh, wow. So real quick, for everyone that's listening, the name of your company is?
EndoDNA, ENDODNA.com, EndoDNA.
There we go. Because I was about to say, you can always check out your lenmaycoaching.com, but that's not necessarily the company, right?
Yeah, that's my own personal. So the reason why I had so many different hats and different jobs. But the whole notion of coaching, I think people get really. Everybody's a coach, right? Life coach. But what I try to do was, because I work with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, that starting with their genetics, and I'm able to go through and review their genetic predispositions, provide them my suggestions, and work with our healthcare professional, one of ours, and I'm booking the experience, because the idea is feedback, right? So here's what you should be doing. How's that working for you? Well, you know what? There's 100 people that have similar genetics that use this protocol, and it was efficacious for them. So that's the way I have a unique kind of niche that we do genetic testing, and it's not just life coaching per se. It starts with your health and wellness, and then everything else, goes from there. Because think about it this way. We all have a lot of desires and dreams and goals and all that stuff. So every day, we want to accomplish different things. If you're unwell, you only have one thought, one focus. You want to get better. So all that goes away. So if we can focus on your personal health, then we can focus on other things from there.
Oh, wow. I love that idea. And it's really interesting because whenever I think about it this way, you just nailed the head of just helping people in a great way, because if we're looking at the building blocks of ourselves, then that's the best way to say, hey, this is, like you said, predispositioned this way, and I want to turn these markers on and be this way a little bit more, so maybe I need to do this, and then everything just kind of falls together really neatly, it should, it sounds like.
Yeah, right? and you have to have an accountability partner. It's the same way you go to the gym. And, this is what happened. It's interesting because when we used to do, we have a feedback loop, right? So people report back. And think of it as somebody makes their New Year's resolution. All right, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go work out. Well, great. Okay. You go to the gym in January, the parking lot is full. You go to the gym in February, it's also full. March, April rolls around, much less full. May, maybe now they want to build their beach bod, so now it's getting filled again. Summer's coming to an end, parking lot's getting emptier and emptier. So this is the same thing with our health and wellness. When people are not feeling well, they're very responsive. So they're going into the app and they're responding back. This is working for me. This is not working for me. When they start feeling better, and they forget that they were sick, they stop responding. So having an accountability partner that holds you accountable to doing something on a daily basis, I think that's really, really important. Whether it's me, whether it's anybody there is, whether it's a friend, it doesn't matter. But you have to do the work in order if you want to get the results. They're not going to happen. And you know what? Sometimes the work is painful. Same way that you go to the gym, your muscles hurt. Well, guess what? If you want to grow, you're going to feel pain. If you want to grow internally, you're going to feel pain. And that's okay. You're going to overcome that. So if you don't have a good support system around you, you may revert back because we're creatures of comfort. And it's much easier for us to get up off the couch and say, nah, you know what? I'm going to sit back down. Much more comfortable here. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, and I love that because the accountability aspect is definitely something that a lot of people, myself included, can definitely fall short on. And being in recovery, especially early recovery, having an accountability buddy was definitely something that was top key because it was like, hey, once I start feeling better, a lot of the times it was like, I don't need to go to a meeting, right? And it's like, oh, I should probably go to a meeting because it's what got me feeling better, so I should probably keep doing the things that got me there in the first place. So is that kind of the same line of thinking with everything? Like once you start it, you kind of got to just run with it if you want it.
Yeah, and as you said with recovery, people revert, right? So you always look in your DNA test, in our DNA test, in your genetics, one of the things. As an example, you can look to see if you have a predisposition of alcohol dependence. You can see if you have a predisposition of opioid dependence. So what would you do with that? Well, we work with doctors all over the country, all over the world, I should say. And like we work with pain management specialists, orthopedic surgeons. One of the biggest factors to dependence on opioids is your doctor giving you a prescription for pain. Now you have an opioid. You get more and more, and you go down the line. As I don't have to explain to you. You know the drill. So,
yes, sir.
So, what I tell doctors, and I'm working with like a bunch of orthopedic surgeons and other clinics, if somebody has a genetic predisposition to opioid dependence, would you be open to changing the protocol post surgery? So, one of the things they're doing is maybe they're given one opioid right after surgery. And that's it. And then they're putting them on the protocol of other anti-inflammatory things, maybe CBD, maybe magnesium, maybe zinc, maybe acetylcholine, all these different things. So instead of getting them, triggering the epigenetic expression of opioid dependence. So these are the things, it creates a collaborative environment for you and your healthcare professional. You're in partnership. And it should be always like this because if you know a lot about yourself, you're not telling the doctor what to do, but you're having a conversation that allows you to align on a certain level. And if you're doing that, you're partners. And what's the journey? Well, it's my health and wellness. It's not the doctor's health and wellness. It's my health and wellness. But you guys are partners in that. So if you're going to tell me what to do like everybody else, I'm an individual. You're an individual. You want your own personalized journey. And if a doctor can subscribe to that, now you're into health care instead of sick care because you want to address what you may be predisposed to before it turns itself on and not just deal with a symptom. We're very and by the way, this is sort of the Western mindset of pain, right? And we mentioned it a little earlier. We go to the doctor, we have pain. Well, the doctor says, you know what? I have something for your pain. I had an accident, and I have something that was painful, and so it's an injury. So they're like, okay, well, you can have surgery, or we can give you an injection. I said, okay, well, surgery, I understand what it's going to do, and I'm not willing to do surgery, scar tissue, and I'm not willing to do anything invasive. What's the purpose of the injection? Well, that's like a nerve blocker. That's blocked the pain. But it said, but the root cause of the pain is something else. Don't we want to look to see what's caused? The pain is a signal that's telling me something is wrong. And if I block the pain and I'm moving some way without feeling the pain, I can re-injure myself more. Is that the case? Yeah, it's the case. So this is, and then removing something, when you're cutting something out, there's consequences to that as well. Are there other things to do to add instead of remove? Can you do stem cells? Can you do exosomes instead of cutting something out? So that's
Yeah.
why we all, and I'm not telling anybody to be their own doctor. I'm telling everybody to be educated enough to be able to partner with their doctor for our own personalized health and wellness journey.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to have people be more proactive to their health instead of reactive, and that is just awesome because, again, you said the words right out of my mouth, just if we had a roadmap to saying, like, this is the best version of me physically, then why wouldn't we want to follow that, right? And it is silly that we are creatures of comfort. So it's like, oh, hey, I have this beautiful roadmap of how I can be my best physical self, but it takes a little bit of work, so I'm not going to do it. So having the accountability buddy is great. Having the doctor and I think that would be super huge too, is having a doctor that's willing to work with that data set, because that's empirical data saying, look, this is saying this marker says this does this, so on and so forth. These are my stats, so this is what's going to work best. And it's not going like, rate your pain from a scale of 1 to 10, right? It's kind of more like, actually walk me through a little bit of how you would help someone get over either opioid addiction, dependency, or what about something simpler about maybe losing weight? Actually, that one may not even be simple because there's so many factors that go into that, right?
Nothing is simple, man. But let me just describe how the test works, and then we can talk about more specifics. So it is a non-invasive buccal swab. So there's a kit. I actually have one from, we have a menopause test for women, but just to give you an example, it's a box looks like this. It's labeled for whatever clinic or healthcare professional is using it. On the back, there's a QR code. And I want people to understand that we're HIPAA compliant, we're GDPR compliant. Why this is important is because the data is de-identified. So we treat this information just like a medical record. So when you swab yourself, you register. If you do not register, we will not know that information belongs to you or the healthcare professional. And it's de-identified. You get a record locator instead of your own personal information. So once you do that, you ship the sample to our lab. It takes about 14 days from the time that the sample reaches our lab. Then you would get notified. You will log into your portal or the doctor, however it is, and you can see your results. So you can see the results, and they're color-coded. So green means there's no variant, no genetic risk. Yellow means there's a variant, so there is a genetic risk. Red means multiple variants, so that's a higher chance of that symptomatic condition expressing itself. From there, there's also an action plan. So there's a treatment plan that's associated with the individual on things that you can do. So it's not I have a genetic predisposition, now so what? Well, now so what? Take action. And that's where the accountability comes in. So for somebody that is looking to lose weight, for instance, there's different factors of why people gain weight. So some people are genetically predisposed to weight gain, which is true. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you can't change that expression. You can. Some people are poor metabolism of carbohydrates. Some people are prone to inflammatory factors. So stress is a huge indicator of that. And there's a ton of evidence. By the way, every single report must have a peer-reviewed reference of PubMed or equivalent to PubMed. If there's no citation, it's not going to be in your report. But just to give you an example of how stress would work. So if somebody has a predisposition to something called stress reactivity, so it's an example, and PTSD and slow rate of fear extinction. Let's say I'm crossing the road and a car comes out of nowhere, almost hits me. So it didn't hit me, but my brain would react and excrete neurochemicals. So I would have some adrenaline, I have some dopamine, I have some norepinephrine, I have some cortisol. All that is in my bloodstream. Yeah. Now, if once your brain realizes no lion chasing the jungle, there's a couple things that happen. There's a reuptake of those neurochemicals, and then your brain releases new neurochemicals to get you back to homeostasis or balance. Now, if you have certain enzymes that break down those other neurochemicals, you may not be creating enough of those, So the cortisol that's in your bloodstream from that stress, that can actually stay there longer. Now, that's our stress molecule or neurochemical. And
Did not feel good.
Yeah, well, when it stays there in your bloodstream, there's a couple things that happen. First of all, it can lower your pH level, make you more acidic. Number two, it can actually create an overactive immune response. So your immune system needs to go and address that. So what we'll feel is inflammation. And our pain and inflammation usually happens in our joints, like ankles, knees, hips, neck and back, etc. So we're going to go and try to get something to reduce our pain. But our pain is actually caused by the inflammation that's caused by the stress. Now, eating creates, it's satiating, right? So when you eat, now you're feeling better. The feeling of that stress may go away. Now, your stress is going away, but maybe you're looking in the mirror and not thinking highly of yourself because you don't like the way you look. So what happens is you start getting depressed. And if you start getting depressed, what happened? Well, sugar. Sugar makes me feel good. I'm going to eat. And then you're on this vicious cycle over and over and over. Depressed, makes you feel good. It's a glucose spike for a temporary amount of time. Then it stores that, converts into fat, and you get bigger and you like yourself less, and et cetera, et cetera. So you're on this hamster wheel. So understanding what your genetic predispositions are, you can change your outcome. You can change what foods you metabolize better. If you're a poor metabolizer of certain things, remove them from what you eat. And the other thing is we have these genes called cytochrome P450. CYP450, everybody has them. They each produce an enzyme that helps us metabolize something. So one of them is for gluten. One of them is for lactose. Well, if you're a poor metabolizer of gluten, I'm not saying, or lactose, and I'm not talking about celiac disease. I'm saying, well, maybe that's something you can actually reduce or remove because your body will react to that with inflammation. Now, some people are gaining weight because they're also inflamed, right? And this whole notion of mental health, because if you're consuming things that make you feel better, now you're feeling better and you're on this hamster wheel feeling worse about yourself, etc.
Oh, man, that does get really topsy-turvy on someone really quick if they're not paying attention, right? And how many markers are there that someone can have?
So right now we're looking at 2.4 million genetic markers. So you're looking at your whole genome. But there are specific reports. So obviously we're doing our menopause biotype, the one I was just showing. That's for female hormone health. So it strictly focuses on female hormone health, perimenopause, menopause, and the adverse effects of menopause. So we're just pulling those markers for women. We have an andropause test for men. That's you may not know that men have their own version of menopause. It's menopause. It's andropause. So what happens is you're starting to produce less testosterone. If that's the case, then you're retaining more fat. It's harder for you to build muscle. It's harder. You have sleep challenges. All these different things. So what can you do about it? Well, there's different things you can modify the hormones exogenously from bioidentical hormones. But there's also food that you can eat. There's also supplements that you can take. So all these different things. So it depends on the report. The endocannabinoid system report is not going to give you anything to do with menopause, for instance. So we pull up different things for different things. We have skin, we have nutrigenomics, and then our mental health report is next. We actually have an Alzheimer's one that we're doing right now. We're in the middle of a clinical study on Alzheimer's for a drug called TB006 that's actually reversing Alzheimer's in people.
Whoa.
Yeah, because Alzheimer's so there's a genetic predisposition to Alzheimer's for several genes. One of them is called APOE4. So if you have this, lifestyle choices can actually express that down the line. Alzheimer's is caused by amyloid plaque. So the same plaque that hardens your arteries in your heart hardens them, the synapse neurotransmitters in your brain. And you're not able to get information back and forth. So there's something called galactin-3 that if you can block that protein, then you stop producing that amyloid plaque, and you can start getting that communication back and forth from the synapse. So we're doing a clinical study on that too.
That's really cool. Like, I know that the brain is really good at clearing out gunk and stuff whenever we're asleep. So that would make sense that Alzheimer's is just putting something there that shouldn't be there.
There you go.
And so it's kind of like, hey, yeah, if you stop it from getting displaced getting placed there in the first place, then the brain will really take care of itself. The brain and really the whole human body is amazing at maintaining homeostasis.
Yeah.
And I just got to say, like, this is some really, 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 really cool stuff, because it goes along, like, all my life I've been like, how can we do something besides big drug? You know, because big drug was like, hey, you got a problem, take a pill, take a pill, take a pill. And ever since I was young, I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do. And I was like, I just don't know how else to do it. And like, for instance, I have a lot of food allergies, and I wonder if my food allergies were maybe because of stress. And after you were talking about stress and it affecting people's joints, it's like, hey, maybe people are just super duper stressed and they don't know it. And there's so many freaking cool things that we can find out from looking at our genetic makeup, right? What is the strangest or the funnest marker that you can think of?
Strangest or funnest? You know, there's some people who are. I have a marker that it's called snatation. So it's a marker that makes me sneeze when I'm full.
What?
So
like if you're full from eating?
Full from eating. I start getting congested and I start sneezing. I know I'm done. I'm filled.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that something that you were kind of like curious about, like your whole life?
Exactly. I had no idea. I was like, I don't understand. I know there's a pattern there. I wonder if it's genetic. So yeah, it took some research, but there are genetic markers that are associated with that.
That is so cool. So someone can go over to EndoDNA and order a test and just send it off, and next thing you know, they're on the way to getting a better them, right?
Yeah, correct. Or you can go to your healthcare professional, see if they carry it, or ask them to carry it in their clinics, and then you can partner with your healthcare professional as well for better results. Look, you know, we talked about recovery and addiction. I actually consulted a couple of centers. We did something what we called a soft landing. It was really for opioid dependence. And they asked me, once again, I'm not advocating anything. This is just what I was asked to do. They asked me if I can help creating a protocol for people that are getting off of opioid dependence. Is really bad with phytocannabinoids. So at first it was sedative. So very higher THC levels to keep them sedated, and then there was a protocol to with CBD, very low THC, if any, with CBD to reduce inflammation to get them back cognitively. So we've done plenty of that, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this notion of mental health and tell you a story. So I have a friend of mine who's a very successful business person. Lots of entrepreneurial ventures. For some reason, he had a venture that didn't go well. Now, I know I did his DNA test, and he was prone to depressive feelings. So somehow, some way, it didn't go well. He became depressed. He went to a psychopharmacologist, got diagnosed, depression, whatever, got medication. So, as you know, a lot of people do. He was driving in the LA area around the canyons, and he said he had his, I think one of his kids, his son, taking him to soccer, and his wife. And he said, I had this overwhelming desire to drive off the cliff. He goes, it was so powerful that I had to pull over. And I pulled over. My wife came out, and she's like, are you okay? He's like, I'm not okay. Yeah. He's like, what's going on? He goes, I should not be driving. So she drove. So the first thing, when we did, he did his pharmacogenomics test. So the drug that he was given was red. He should not have been given that drug in the first place. And all these drugs weren't. The second thing he has a predisposition to treatment-resistant depression. So the drugs that he was given wouldn't have worked anyway. But guess what? He had the side effects. One of the side effects is suicidal thoughts. So these are the things. Eventually, he found what's working for him, balance of different things. But that's the point. And I was giving a talk in San Diego to Big Pharma people and pharmaceutical sales people, and there was doctors in there. And I asked the question, I said, how many of you, when you prescribe medication, how many of you do a pharmacogenomics test? Not
zero.
One. Yeah, not one hand. No. And I said, well, that's the problem. I said, you understand that some people there's certain drugs that are not going to work for them. They're still going to get the side effects. You should know. And certain are contraindications. What if they're taking something for their heart? Are you giving them a medication? So their feedback is, well, the pharmacist is going to know. Well, I don't know if you've been to a CVS or one of those. I mean, there's a line. They're so busy trying to get you drugs. You don't have the time to, they don't do pharmacogenomics in everybody. So this is why we need to feel empowered. And it's our health and wellness. And if we rely on doctors, as you were saying earlier, what's the Voltaire quote? The doctor will amuse the patient while the body heals itself, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And that's the case. That's the case. If we believe we're going to heal, if we focus on that, and we have a team, accountability, good friends around us, we have a functional medical professional that's focusing on healthcare instead of sick care. Now we have a team for us, and that's what everybody should be looking for, is that team with accountability, good healthcare professionals, and somebody that we can take control over our own health and wellness.
That is way too cool. It's a little scary that all Big Pharma was like, yeah, we do zero. And it's like, yeah, y'all should probably do that. But this is something that is relatively new. And it's so freaking cool. Hang on. There was something I was just about to say. And Bunny just slipped. Oh, man. I hate it when this happens. It's happened a little. Medication. Oh, man.
I'm sure it'll come back to you when it's important. To come back.
But it was like tying into something, but yep, it'll come back. Sorry, I digress.
Nah, no worries. And I was actually privy to be on a Zoom call with a lot of the healthcare providers and insurance companies and the big ones. And there was a couple big pharma companies there as well. So they said their goal is to address the biggest epidemic in the United States right now, which is the rise of diabetes. It's great. Okay, so that's their goal. I know Ozempic, is a big part of trying to address that, even though people are taking it for different reasons. But their goal was to reduce the price of insulin for $1 or less than $1 a day. That's all they talked about. And so when it was my turn to ask a question, I said, great, okay, what are any of you doing to prevent the expression of the diabetes before somebody actually has it? And, some of them say, we have programs, if you get our insurance, that we reimburse people for gym memberships, etc.
That doesn't do it.
Nothing really, so that's the fact. So, Big Pharma, Big Pharma has their own agenda, but if you really look at the way it's set up, is we have insurance. Insurance reimburse, doctors for shorter visits. The longer the visit is, the less money you actually net. Pharmaceutical drugs, there's pharmaceutical salespeople that incentivize doctors to prescribe their medications. So, we have to understand that there's a machine out there, and anything that goes beyond the machine that's already set up for us is challenging to them. So there's going to be resistance. So we have to just be aware that, alternative or traditional therapies, mixing Western with Eastern plant medicine, psychedelics, all these different things, these are things that are available, but they're personal experiences. So if you have that team that you can actually have an honest, open conversation and do your research. See, what if there is actual approval. See what the what the clinical research says about that, and then make a decision that way.
Yeah, I mean, that is the best way to go about it. And I mean, a lot of people are probably scared about seeking healthcare in the first place because Big Pharma and also the whole money and just literally you're walking into a minefield, it feels like sometimes whenever you go to the doctor's office, because it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? It could be a number of things and I don't have money to pay for this. But if I have this roadmap to say, this are the things that I'm already aware of, and these are things that, oh, hey, I should be on the lookout for, or maybe I want to change a few things, that this is just the way to go and do it. And it's crazy that so many of these markers can be seen, and so is each one saying, like, this is going to cause this, right?
It says you have a genetic predisposition to this. And
Gotcha.
When I talk about polygenics, you have multiple markers. So if you have multiple markers that are associated with a condition, you're more likely to express them than somebody that has one marker or no markers at all. So
Gotcha.
it'll give you a genetic predisposition to something. It doesn't mean you're going to express it. So if I have a predisposition to alcohol dependence, well, it runs in my family. I know it. Does that mean I can never have a drink? No. Does that mean that I should be aware if drinking is becoming habitual? Yes, I need to make a decision before I flip the switch myself. So those are the things that help you make better life decisions as well.
Gotcha.
I'll give you another one really quick. Sorry
Okay.
to interrupt, but so if you have a predisposition to low iron levels in your blood, but you make a decision, you don't know this about yourself, but you make a decision that you're going to give up red meat and you're going to be a vegan. Well, you already have a predisposition to low iron levels. So you're not supplementing with iron, and you're not putting in foods like spinach, etc., that have high iron. And you can develop an iron deficiency. And you don't know this about yourself. So if you know this about yourself, you can still make the dietary change, but also you can subsidize with other things to make sure that you don't have those levels. So that's where you can learn more about yourself.
Yeah, I really like that because it's one of those like, oh, I tried to change myself for the better and it didn't really quite work. Oh, or it backfired and this is why. And that would definitely be frustrating for those that have tried time and time again, or all these different resources, techniques, methods in trying to achieve something and not having any viable result. And this is definitely one of those ways that they can say, oh, well, no wonder nothing was working because I did this or this. And so whenever a switch is flipped on, someone can or cannot turn it off.
Can.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it just is going to take a certain amount of work, a certain amount of accountability, responsibility.
It depends. It depends on the markers. Like when we first started talking, I talked about BRCA1, BRCA2, which are breast cancer markers. Well, if your lifestyle led to the expression of that gene, well, now you have breast cancer. What stage? That all depends. So can you turn off that expression? I don't think you can turn it off at that point, but you can get to a point where you're in remission and turn it down and hopefully not let it turn back on or express itself again. So it depends on what type of marker. We're not looking at diseases per se. We're not a diagnostic test. We are a test. We're a decision support tool for healthcare professionals. So they can use this to help them make better informed decisions for their patient care. But, there are diagnostic tools out there that help you diagnose people with specific genetic conditions. So they're available too. If you have that, some of them can be turned down epigenetically, some of them cannot.
Oh, okay. And you were talking earlier about how essentially facing backlash from Big Pharma and stuff because the machine's already in place and, we got to fight against the machine. What setbacks have y'all had in this endeavor so far? Because It sounds like y'all are on the blazing the road for a whole bunch of really great therapies and different methods for getting people better. But if we're getting people better before they need traditional medicine and stuff, then it's kind of like some people don't want to shoot themselves in the foot, right?
Yeah. Backlash we have to deal with the FDA. So the FDA asked us, what is the purpose of your test? Originally in 2018, we said to help people either mitigate or avoid a possible adverse event. They said, great, just can't make any claims and can't talk about a disease. I said, okay, well, my customer is a healthcare professional. They can do whatever they want with the tools. So we're okay with that. Traditional medical doctors, they have a hard time with this because they weren't trained in genetics or had very little. And their cookie cutter approach is what they're used to. So to add something else to their practice is difficult for them to, grasp. Where I would say we do really well is functional medical professionals, integrative medical professionals that are looking to see what the root cause are. People that are specialized in traditional Chinese medicine, plant medicine, or like I said, functional medical professionals, because the interaction between different things is maybe the root cause of what is being expressed. So I wouldn't say it's backlash. Look, I'm a hockey fan. It's one of the things.
Okay.
So Wayne Gretzky, the great one, even though he's not the highest number of goals, Ovechkin passed him this year, but he still has the most points. They call him the great one. And back in the day, I think when he was playing for Edmonton, the reporter asked him, how do you score all these goals? And he said, well, I skate where the puck is going to be. And when you're doing something innovative, you're ahead. You're skating where the puck is going to be. So you have two choices. You can follow somebody else's breadcrumb trail, which is fine, and make a better mousetrap, so to speak, or you can be an innovator, be first, which has its own challenges. You're creating a part of an industry that didn't exist before. And when you're a trailblazer, there's a lot of challenges. There's naysayers, it's not going to work. There's people who are going to copy. We have patents. That's one of the things that I think helped us a lot, to have IP, that way we protect ourselves. But it's always challenging when it's new and it's innovative and you're a trailblazer. So I'd rather skate where the puck is going to be than wait to get a pass from somebody while I'm standing there waiting to shoot. So that's sort of the mentality.
Oh man, I love that, because it really does highlight the whole being proactive and not reactive, and you are essentially creating a whole field, I'd say. Maybe not field, but something special, and it's something that I think is going to take a lot of people really, 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 really far, because if we're working with the building blocks of ourselves, then there's probably no real limit on what we can and can't do with ourselves at that point, right?
Well, the limits that we've had originally were computational limits, right? So there's all this data, there's feedback data. How do we? And it was a process. It was a compute process. So you have to write programs. With AI, it's accelerated like a gazillion fold, because now we can use AI to make predictive inferences. We can use AI to make on-the-fly suggestions. AI will learn from the feedback and make better suggestions. So it helps us get a lot quicker to where we need to be, and it's much more accurate, because when we build our own large language models with generative AI, we guardrail it so it doesn't hallucinate. So if you're using ChatGPT, ChatGPT can make up stories on its own, and it hallucinates. Yeah. But if you're creating your own version of that, you're teaching the model over and over and over. Once you taught it, the model trains itself and gets better and better and better. So with the notion of AI, and we have a patent on that as well, with machine learning, that accelerates everything so rapidly, and it really changes the landscape. And the healthcare is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be changed completely the way we do healthcare. Even diagnostics, looking at X-rays and MRIs and CAT scans. Well, humans make mistakes. AI is not going to make that mistake, and it's not only going to look at that information, it's going to compare it to information with hundreds of thousands of people and tell you where some of those discrepancies are. Imagine a human being has to look at hundreds and thousands of film. It's not doable, but with AI, it is. So I'm truly excited about that.
Yeah, that is awesome, and that would make sense that the computational limits were the thing that y'all came across, because with that many 2.8 million markers, was it
2.4? Yeah.
2.4. That's still a whole lot of numbers that I wouldn't be able to sit there and like draw little lines to and saying this is that, or yeah, that would have been really difficult. But I was about to ask if y'all were going to do something with AI, because you were saying it helps so much, and I was like, that would be really cool to be like, hey, I did this test with these guys, and so maybe they have an AI bot that can help me along this. And it sounds like that y'all are already on that path. So
yeah, we have a patent. I'm trying to remember the name of the patent, but we just got it 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we're waiting 5 years for this patent. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the. It's a long title of the patent, so I'm going to pull it up. So it's machine learning based efficacy predictions based on genetic and biometric information. So what that means is we're using machine-based efficacy predictions, so AI, and using genetics and also biometrics, so biomarkers, blood markers, etc. But we can also have feedback from your wearable device. So your Oura Ring, your Fitbit, etc. It can check to see what heart rate variability you may have, take that information to the cloud, and then start saying, let's make better predictions, let's make better suggestions based on that information.
Oh, wow. For some reason, I just got like, say 20 years in the future, we're going to be sitting around having a Baymax, and I mean, it's going to be right along those lines, because he's going to have the scanner that contains all the information that y'all are working on and building right now. And then he can sit there and be like, hey, I've got your whole library of everything that needs to go on.
Well, I can give you a little glimpse in the future before 20 years.
Okay.
So in Israel, they created these nanobot technology. So it's in a clinical study now, but they're microscopic nanobots. Think of it as a bacterial that's injected. But what it does, it scans your system on an ongoing basis, sends signals to an app or maybe a healthcare professional, and gives you exactly what you need in the moment at all times. Because one of the things with blood tests, that's what we have to go on, it captures a moment in time. It doesn't capture yesterday. It doesn't capture tomorrow. It captures a moment in time. But if you have a nanobot that can actually capture on an ongoing, it can create patterns. That pattern will go to the AI. The AI will give you back feedback, and you have your own, healthcare advisor that's personalized to you, that's always giving you suggestions and recommendations specific to you, what's going on over time. So that's happening now.
That would be really cool to sit there and couple it with like a journal of some sorts. To sit there and be like, this is my experience on this day and everything, and these were my markers and stuff. And so, oh man, I just, now I want to get nanobots to me, and I never thought I'd say that, but
Very soon.
Yeah, very soon. Well, Len, I gotta say that this is very, very interesting stuff, and I can see that this is going to be beyond the forefront of healthcare management, and just I'm trying to think of a really good word for it. It's just a whole lot in one package, and it's going to do so much good for the world. And I'm just glad that I got a chance to sit here and talk to you before it just goes as big as it should be, honestly, you know, because,
appreciate it.
yeah, because I mean, in the future, I don't know if I'll be able to do an interview like this with you just because you're probably going to be so big doing talks over in Japan every third Sunday or something.
I
know?
do those now. I just had Brazil today. I did Japan. So, but no, I'm never too big. Like the thing is that I want to get the word out. Everybody should know. We have billions of people on this planet, so I'll keep doing it until everybody's aware that they can take better charge over their health and wellness. It's the number one thing that we should all be concerned about. I know that economy, we have divisions, we have all kinds of things in the U.S. especially, and different countries have their own problem. But we have a unifying thing that all of us need. It's health and wellness, our own health. So if we all focus inward on addressing our health, then I think physical, mental health, all of them are interconnected. We'll be better human beings that can actually, connect with other people in a healthier way. So I'm a big believer in that.
Oh, I love that, because making people healthy is going to make the world healthier.
There you
And yes. So with that in mind, do you think that we would be able to get you on the show again to talk about advancements that y'all may have had or other discoveries and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. We can do it.
Sweet. Because this is really interesting. I want to do my own research and have some really, I don't know how defined I could get without actually doing a test, but maybe I'll have to do a test so I can be like,
we'll
hey.
get you a test and we'll go over your results.
Yeah, because that way I can be like, yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. Well, Len, is there... do you have any shout-outs that you would like to do for anyone or anything?
Not really shout-outs. I'm proud of my daughter for finishing her second year at Berkeley. So that's a shout-out. But I have my own podcast called Everything is Personal, so people can check that out as well. I have a book. I have several books, but this is one behind me. It's called Making Cannabis Personal. So you can get that on Amazon. But yeah, I do something music related. I'm a big music fan, so every day I do a record of the day. And there's a book coming out on that too. But if you're following me on social media, Len May or Len May DNA, you'll see my record of the day. I have a very large vinyl collection that I listen to on a daily basis. So that's my shout-out.
That's really awesome. Sweet. So everyone, go visit endodna.com, lenmaycoaching.com, and Everything's Personal podcast.
That's it.
Awesome. Sweet. I'm glad I got that right. And then a record a day.
Record of the day. Yep.
So everyone be sure to check all that out, and be sure to go to EndoDNA to get your test so we can figure out how to make ourselves better and make everyone else around us better just by being better us's. So everyone, thank you out there for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day whenever you may be watching this. And until next time, much love. Schlan.